Is my sound
Buckle up, gentlemen.
Welcome to DGT Live, and welcome to our big Star Wars show. I'm your host, Obi-John Kenobi, and I'm here with my usual co-host, and that is Mr. Tony, the Wookie Walters, the founder of Rad Entertainment, writer-director of suspense thriller film June, co-owner of Garage House Studios. Tony, thanks for joining me as usual.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for that lovely introduction.
Oh, yeah.
You just plugging all my stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Also, on our very first Our Big Star Wars show, we have some extremely special guests today to kick this thing off. She's the writer-director of Laughstash TV, co-host of The Hunger Games, Let's Drink, and Let's Rewatch. This is Princess Leia Stash, Ash Blodgett. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, the man that did the Kessler run in less than 12 parsecs. He is the creator and co-host of Masters of Modern podcast, the CEO of Kesco, co-creator of one of my all-time favorite net shows, Top Decking, Mr. Alex the Kessler Run Kessler.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
All right. That was a big intro. I'm spent. You guys go ahead. No. So we are going to be talking everything Star Wars. It's our big Star Wars show, but in normal DGT fashion, I also brought a special guest with me. So I have a prismatic, juicy IPA from Ninkasi. Thank you, Mr. Christian, for hooking this one up from Northwest Beverage. Thank you again for sampling out these amazing, tasty beverages. So does anyone else have a special guest with them tonight?
I have a special guest that's not PBR this week. It's a Yum Yum. It's an American session ale from Three Floyds Brewing Company, which is in Indiana. I don't have a Christian, so I have to go out and find things on my own.
He's so jealous of my Christian.
I am.
All right. Ash, you brought something, right?
I do, yeah. I am drinking Layer Cake Syrah. I did not have a beer tonight, but I did have one.
All right. And you have at least a really cool cup, Alex.
Yeah, I'm drinking out of my Typo C3PO metal water bottle because plastic is bad, and it's filled with blue milk.
Excellent. With I've seen your videos, Ash. You actually are quite a fan of that blue milk, right?
Yes, I suppose you would say that. Yeah, I have. There's a Let's Drink episode where we drink Star Wars cocktails, and we do the blue milk one, which is that one was actually really good. I will say, it was pretty.
It won the show, from what I remember. Nice.
I'm glad you remember because I don't.
What's that?
Is it blue Caracal and Kahlua just mixed together?
It's basically, yeah, and some milk. I think some vodka maybe too. I can't remember. My memory's really fuzzy at that point. I think that was a couple drinks in.
Memories tend to be fuzzy on drinking shows.
Yeah.
Funny how that works. So this is the very first Our Big Star Wars show. So there is a couple of big news in the world of Star Wars, and nowadays there's always big news in the world of Star Wars. We get a movie every year. We get an episode every other year. It's all Star Wars all the time. So why not have a show to talk about that? So the first thing that's kind of on the docket that I would like to get your guys's feedback on is the Han Solo trailer debuted, or I guess just, Solo, a Star Wars story, debuted during the Super Bowl. I was about to freak out a little bit before if it didn't drop, and I figured it probably would, but I'm just like, this is not a good sign that we don't have a Solo trailer with only about a couple months before the movie drops. You hear of all these things behind the scenes kind of going wrong and everything. So I was getting a little nervous, but we did get the Solo trailer. So what did you guys think of finally getting this thing? We got the little teaser and then the actual trailer. So yeah, whoever wants to start out, what did you guys think of the Solo trailer?
To touch on what you were saying with the because I was equally afraid because we were hearing nothing about this movie and it comes out in May. I think it's partly just, and yes, there are problems behind the scene, but in hindsight, I realized there's no good moment in January to release content. January is a dead zone everywhere. And so Force Awakens coming out like right before Christmas, and so you didn't want to kind of ruin the hype of people going to see Force Awakens, and you're going to put all your ad dollars towards promoting that because it was still in theaters up until now. Still, I believe I can go see Last Jedi, not Force Awakens, Last Jedi in theaters. Yeah. And so you want to be careful. And then the Super Bowl is kind of that first big moment, as much as I hate it because my birthday is the day before it. The first big moment to start advertising stuff. And that's kind of the perfect moment to kind of switch over from Last Jedi marketing mode to Han Solo, since it's the first new Star Wars movie happening in the summertime.
Nice. So you were worried about it, so you were pretty relieved when it finally did drop.
There was a bunch of articles talking about it's weird that we've seen zero marketing materials for a Star Wars movie that comes out in 5 months or less. Yeah. Three months now. Yeah.
Yeah. I just get this feeling that the company, like that Disney, is just not 100%, like they're not confident in the film. I think that if they were confident in the movie, we would have gotten a trailer possibly before The Last Jedi. I know that from like a marketing standpoint, maybe you don't want to throw out that trailer right before The Last Jedi, but on the same sense, with Avengers, we just got a trailer for, Black Panther comes out. They've already thrown out the trailers for Infinity War. We just got a trailer for Ant-Man. Like, I mean, I know that they don't have they don't have the same branding. It's not like every movie says Avengers attached to it, so they can kind of get away with it. But I just feel like at the same time, if they were super confident in the film, why not throw the trailer right in front of The Last Jedi? Like when The Last Jedi, you go to see it, boom, you get Han Solo. I mean, maybe they still don't want to take away from the movie. You don't want to be thinking about the Han Solo movie while watching The Last Jedi. But I still think that if they were really confident in it, they would have released it early. I think that with pretty much firing Lord Miller and then having to, bring on
Ron Howard.
Yeah, Ron Howard. Bring on Ron Howard to basically, I mean, they basically like reshot like the whole movie, it seems like. I just feel like they're scrambling to make this movie work. And I think that from just a Star Wars fan, this is one of the movies that when it was announced, I wasn't even thrilled with anyway. And now they've just had so many problems with it. And I don't know. I have my expectations are always pretty just level when I go into a movie anyway. But this one it has me a little rocky. Even the trailer. A little bit of that
Rogue One thing going on, right? It's like with the reshoots and the ambiguity.
I don't. The Rogue One reshoots. Every big blockbuster, you're spending this much money. Every single movie has reshoots. The Rogue One reshoots didn't even bother me at all. The movie bothered me, but not the reshoots.
Kind of responsible for a lot of the problems with Rogue One. I mean, the idea is that the original movie was much more about character development, but the character development was these characters are terrorists, and that is what we're trying to tell you is that the rebels are terrorists in this universe, and we're making that analogy here. And Disney was like, ooh. Let's pull that back. And then that's why you cared zero when every character died, because they made a movie that didn't establish those characters because they had to cut a bunch of stuff out and try and duct tape it together.
Right.
Ash, what did you think about the actual content of the trailer?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited by this trailer because I know it's a controversial statement, but I didn't like The Last Jedi that much.
We'll get there.
Yeah, Last Jedi. But this movie, the trailer for this movie sort of had everything that I think could be a perfect storm for a Han Solo movie, as far as like, I mean, the fashion in the film like looked really cool and like 70s-esque, sort of back to that 70s-esque vibe, which I really liked. I feel like the vibe I got from the trailer was sort of similar to the vibe of Rogue One. I've heard some other people comparing that too. And while Rogue One wasn't necessarily my favorite either, I kind of liked the vibe of that better than Last Jedi. So that made me excited. And then I'm just super excited for Donald Glover, and his super awesome fur coat. I mean, how could you not love the fur coat? It's pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, Lando or Donald Glover was going to be my favorite part of the movie, anyways. But like Alex was saying, there was some hints of things that were behind the scenes, just wrong with it, and a lot of the reshoots happen, and like you said, reshoots do happen, Tony. But this was extensive reshoots, where there was even a rumor where they had to bring in acting coach for I'm blanking on who's playing Han Solo.
Yeah, that's the
Aaron.
thing.
All right.
Yeah, and it's just like
I will say he didn't seem very impressive in the trailer.
He's well, like I think What's interesting to me is I feel like there's a bunch of Disney execs kicking themselves in the butt about not making this the Lando movie, which I would be
Right?
much hyped to watch.
Exactly.
Like,
That's what I want now.
there's a poster that they released all the character posters, and there's one for Lando, there's one for Daenerys Targaryen, there's one for and Lando. I wish it was just the movie. It looks it looks great. Can we swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, it looks great. He's in this yellow suit, like everything looks really wonderful. And I'm like, why? Like, there's a character we don't know. He had like maybe 13 scenes in all of the first 3 Star Wars movies, or in all of Star Wars history. Here's a character, and he goes from guy who was running around with Han Solo, smuggler and ne'er-do-well, to respectable businessman and owner of kind of a planet. And
kind of important stuff, right?
well, that happened.
Yeah, he has a very interesting character arc if you think about it, because he really, like you said, he becomes a respectable businessman, but then he trades his friend back over, and then he ends up being a good guy again. So he like has this way of going back and forth, which makes him an interesting character for sure.
I didn't realize how much I wanted a Lando movie until you guys started talking about it.
Don't worry, we'll get that next year.
My big thing with these like anthology films are that if you're gonna expand the universe, then expand the universe. Like, doing a Han Solo movie doesn't expand the universe. You're just like you're filling in gaps of like, hey, I did this race thing back in the day, and now we're gonna do a movie about it. Like, it drives me nuts. Hey, we stole some Death Star plans. Like, let's do a movie on that. Like, can we just get some characters and show a story that has nothing to do with like the original trilogy? Can we just get... Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's what they're planning on doing. I mean, oh man, I forget his name. The director of Last Jedi is getting a
Rian Johnson.
Rian Johnson.
It's supposed to have no original characters and be something about a world we've never really talked about. The Double Ds from Game of Thrones announced yesterday, and I wish we had more female and or people of color making these movies, but fine. But they were just announced yesterday that they're getting a series of movies or a single movie that is meant to not be about the Skywalker characters. And I think part of it is just Disney putting their foot in the water of the extended universe and not knowing how much the audience is going to. I mean, I know before Rogue One, because I was at Jakks Pacific at the time, which did all the action figures for Rogue One, and they were deathly afraid of that movie. They did not know how an adult-themed, non-main Star Wars movie was going to do, because every one of those in the history of Star Wars has done bad. The Clone Wars animated series didn't do well as a movie. The Ewok movies are all obviously wonderfully bad. So
Star Wars Christmas Story.
So you have like this history of Star Wars spin-off movies doing badly, and then you have this totally off the wall, not for kids movie about terrorists blowing up a Death Star or looking for plans, and they were afraid of it. So I think to begin with, they're like, what's safe choices? Everyone loves Han Solo. Let's just do a Han Solo movie. I know they are going to do a movie, and that didn't happen because the director was the guy who everyone dropped. Fantastic Four director. I'm forgetting everyone's name. Josh Trank.
Yeah.
So that went out of the door, which is good for everyone. And now we're kind of moving this. I'm still hopeful for an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. That would be the thing I would pick. Unforgiven on Tatooine sounds amazing, but now I want to land a movie.
I thought they were doing it. I thought there's like rumors that they're doing it.
Rumors.
I think.
Okay.
I say that we're gonna get an Obi-Wan movie. I mean, I feel like that one's a sure thing. Even though I don't care to see it, but I would care way more about an Obi-Wan movie than I would a Han Solo movie. But who better to do a Knights of the Old Republic movie than the guys from Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's just like no one's gonna be as good of a Han Solo as Harrison Ford. Obviously, even this kid is kind of struggling, at least from the reports and even the trailer. It's like he's kind of not even. He's got the smirk down, but the voice isn't there. And I don't need like a Jamie Costa like straight out impersonation. That's not what I'm looking for. But it's like an Obi-Wan would make sense, because even though the prequels are the prequels, Ewan McGregor was actually a fantastic Obi-Wan.
He's the good part of the prequels. He's part of that series. I was alone for a Christmas season, still having to work, so I wasn't going out with friends, anything. And I re-edited the prequels at one point to New Trilogy. And the only scenes that I was like, these are still great, are the Obi-Wan Kenobi scenes, because he is for some reason able to work with a bad director or direction from the director.
Well, he's just an amazing actor. I think he can pull off anything,
But so Padme, once again, I'm forgetting everyone's name.
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman is obviously a great actress, but for some reason, especially in Sith, her scenes are all very problematic versus Ewan McGregor, who's killing it with material that is not worth it.
That's just because George
Lucas.
Lucas.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's because George Lucas is terrible with like actors. Like he's great with story, but he's really bad with actors. And the reason Ewan McGregor works is just because he's a great actor, but also because Alec Guinness had like how much screen time really in Star Wars? Like he's not he was a great character, but Harrison Ford, he's been in 4 films, like leading almost like 4 movies. And like, how do you just,
we've seen his story, and we know his story was irrelevant before that point because he was slumming it on Tatooine.
Exactly.
It's not like we're like, oh, he had a life of adventure and accomplishment, and then he ended up being in debt to a drug lord. It was like, no. This is the start point. How will we see him grow? The best thing we can get out of the Han Solo movie is to see him degress, which I guess is maybe interesting, but not.
I feel like that's the direction they're going. In the trailer, it's him. He wants to be a pilot in the Empire, and then apparently that's going to fail. So then he's going to start being a smuggler, and dealing drugs, and with Woody Harrelson.
How read are you guys on the old extended universe?
I'm pretty good.
Okay, so like you've read the Han Solo trilogy from the 3 books that they came out with.
Yeah, 100 years ago, but yes.
So like. If they've been borrowing canon, because look at Thrawn and look at, the Rebels has done it more than the main movies, but you could argue that Kylo Ren is Jason Solo.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so if they're pulling the stuff that's good, and those books were one of like the things that were good of the extended universe, I can very much see them starting it with him in Flight School Academy and then him saving Chewbacca from slavery, or being, that's kind of how their friendship began in the old universe, and continuing that makes sense to me. And that's kind of what this trailer establishes.
So more or less, are we more excited about, because Rogue One was the first Star Wars story, and, it had that mystique, that intrigue that had to do with it. Are we more excited at this point when Rogue One is announced, and even through all the, the problems it had publicly, or are we now, kind of a little bit know what to expect with the Star Wars story, know that they could kind of, jump out of the episode kind of format? Are we more excited for Solo, or were we more excited for Rogue One?
I think I'm more excited for Solo because I am a Han Solo fan, and, I love the casting in this movie so far, and I wasn't as excited about the casting in Rogue One, except for now I'm blanking on his name, but the guy who played K2,
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk, who's
when one
amazing
dick isn't
and
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm more excited for this one. I definitely see, it could definitely have some serious faults. Like it could feel. There's a part in the trailer where it feels very much like the original Star Wars movie. I forget which one it is, but where they land inside the big worm and everything. It kind of felt like that replayed again. So I could see it being like rehashing old tropes.
Well, Star Wars itself has always been, one to rehash old things, but like pay homage to itself. And then, but it's like, George Lucas always refers to it as poetry, and that poetry reflects upon itself. And so it's just mirroring itself over the ages, which is nice. And, it gives you that little nostalgia feel, but when done wrong can feel like The Force Awakens and just give you another Death Star. So it can work and it can't work. I mean, it just depends on Ron Howard, I guess, to save this entire movie.
Which is like, the Ron Howard thing is, there's no way this movie is worse than fine. You don't bring Ron Howard into a movie to make you brought him in to fix it, and their point was, we have a movie that is a disaster. Who's a director that we know is going to make a fine movie? It might not be wonderful, it's not really not going to be the best Star Wars movie ever made, but it's going to be fine because that's what he does great. And let's find a seasoned director who's available. And then,
I agree 100%.
Right, like there's no way this movie is bad.
Yeah, it's like Lord and Miller were directors that you bring in to do something risky, and then Disney's like, no, that's not even at all what we want. It's too.
And
risky.
It was going to be straight up comedy, right?
Like, how do we go this? Yeah, it was going to be straight up comedy, and then we're just like, how do we go safe on the movie? We'll just go Ron Howard. Ron Howard can do safe really well.
Like, even the bad Da Vinci Code movie, Angels and Demons, is
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine.
It's competent.
But it's,
Yeah.
you can watch it and you're like, okay, I saw this movie. I'm gonna go on with my life. And
Right.
I
But
think
is that where we're at now, though? Fine for Star Wars movies?
well, we were at bad before Disney started.
It's true. It's true.
Anything is an improvement at this moment.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to the Arrested Development voiceovers that he'll add, right, to improve it.
And the only thing I'll counterpoint the bringing in Ron Howard, and he's like, okay, it feels like Justice League all over again a little bit, whereas it's definitely different circumstances with the Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon thing, but it still turned out to be kind of a mess when you have two chiefs in the kitchen. It's always going to feel disjointed. Like JLA was a disjointed nightmare. I don't want a Star Wars to feel like that as well.
That's my fear too.
As you said, though, you were saying that they reshot a lot. So maybe that is in turn a good sign, because Ron Howard said, okay, here's how I can change it into my vision. And instead of just doing a few little patch scenes, we're going to reshoot a lot,
And the difference also is that they filmed almost all of Justice League, Justice League was a finished movie that they had problems with and then brought another director in to redo from a finished state versus this was halfway through production. Oh, fuck, this is fucked. How do we deal with it?
The world's on fire. Fuck it.
And they were like, no. And they're like, okay, we're Disney. You're fired. Ron Howard, come on. And you can reshoot the movie from scratch. Here are your actors. Here's the script that we approved and liked. Because that was the other point, is that the script and the cast they were fine with. It was that the directors were refusing. They were doing everything off book. So it wasn't like they had to recreate a thing from scratch versus Justice League, where they probably had a mess of a script that wasn't good and made a mess out of it because the entire universe, other than one movie, is a mess. So I think the Ron Howard move is they had more time. It came in the middle of the problem instead of at the end of the problem.
Yeah. It's the Solo movie. It's the movie that no one asked for, but it's the movie that we deserve. So before we move on to the next topic, because I can't justify going into my second beer on the same topic, does anyone else have any closing statements for Solo?
I would just say, back to your question of whether or not I was more excited for Rogue One at this point versus Solo. I was infinitely more excited for Rogue One. I read Catalyst, which was like the canon book that led up into it, which was fantastic. I was way more excited for it, but let down extremely by the film, where now I'm not really too excited for Solo, so I'm hoping that it's really good.
Yeah. Set those expectations low, and then you'll be happy.
That's kind of what I try to do. I've been burned too many times.
All right, so let's jump into kind of topic number 2, and I think this one's going to get maybe a little heated, because just knowing a little bit about you got your guys' stance already. Let's just go for it. We won't do a full spoiler review because we've already kind of done that on this channel for The Last Jedi, but I just want to kind of get everyone's kind of quick thoughts so we could kind of set the table for to see where everyone's coming from. So let's go first with Alex. What did you think of episode 8?
Well, before I do, and I'll answer this here too. Can I ask the group a question to raise your hands on a few questions? Did you like Force Awakens? Raise your hand if you did. Okay. Did you like Rogue One?
Best last 30 minutes of a Star Wars I've ever seen.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. It has a lot of really good stuff in it, but
I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I didn't hate
it that way. It was fine.
Okay.
I dozed off in the middle.
I guess these are now verbal things. Which original Star Wars movie is your favorite?
Empire.
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or the first one for me, I would say.
Empire, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so and then now raise your hand if you liked The Last Jedi. Okay, so my thoughts on The Last Jedi was that it was wonderful. Obviously, we're a little bit past it now, so I don't have the same overwhelming hype at the time of. I think there's obviously some flaws, though, because it's the longest Star Wars movie, having a nice bathroom break intermission during the casino scenes. Really
can all agree there.
Thoughtful of the director.
Oh, that's why he put this in there. I was trying to figure it out.
Why is this here? Oh, because they're in jail. I'm supposed to go to the bathroom here. Perfect. It's like this halftime. I thought that a lot of what worked really well. I'm really excited for the next one. And I thought I liked how they took every chance they had to go under what your expectations were supposed to be. They did that. So, everyone walking into Force Awakens or out of Force Awakens, the biggest complaint that I would regularly get is this movie is just a rehash. And then I would go into the long story of the Hidden Fortress and how all of Star Wars is a rehash and how we really wanted to make a John Connor on Mars remake, et cetera, et cetera. But the Walking on Last Jedi, that's the opposite. And then the infuriating moment where the entire internet exploded being like, oh, this isn't the Star Wars that I wanted. I want it to be exactly like Empire, after an entire 2 years of everyone continuously yelling at me about how much The Force Awakens was too similar to Star Wars and they wanted something different, was tiring.
Yeah. So besides Canto Bite, then your position is it was a pretty great movie besides that intermission scene.
I think it is the prettiest Star Wars movie ever made. I think that it
really?
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back is, really beautiful cinematography.
Also really pretty. This is not to say the other ones are not pretty. That the throne room lightsaber fight, like all of the color juxtaposition against each other, the white sand / salt against the red rocks, the lightsaber fight in the throne room, the hyperspace jump, even just the entire intro scene where the bombing run and just the sister of, I'm going to forget people's names, but the main female
Rose.
Right.
Rose's sister kind of dying in that explosion and how that goes about. I think like the cinematography of this movie was very, very, very top tier compared to the other movies. I think it was definitely prettier than Force Awakens and all of the prequels. I can see the argument for Empire, though I think some of the colors in this are just much more vivid than Empire was. Empire was a lot of white and grays, which is fine. But yeah, that's kind of where, from that perspective, I think the Canto Bite stuff was, I understood why it was there. I wish it was just all on the base or the main ship on where instead of them going to a casino, they go there, get locked up, then meet up with Hacker Dude, and then that all runs out the same from that point on. Because I think the casino was just a very ham-fisted way to make points about how people making money on war are making money on both sides, and bringing gray area to it, which I get why you want that, but this is not the most important facet of what this is. Or what what we're trying to watch here. And then if you look at, I love what they did with the characters. I love Kylo. I love the SS Rilo. I am shipping it very hard. I love what they did with, the subversion of what was going on with Poe and how, he got a lot of people killed. I think this is one of the best performances, both from Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill in the history of their careers.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Mark Hamill especially, excluding voice acting work, which is different because there's not physicality to it, so it's hard to attribute what is best compared to both, because his Joker is amazing. But from a visual, like actually acting on camera, I think this is the best he's ever done.
You didn't
Carrie
find
Fisher,
Carrie Fisher's like stiff face distracting? Like her obvious like plastic surgery. I don't know. I couldn't get over it. I'm sorry, guys.
Hey, they have plastic surgery in a galaxy far, far away.
I guess so. You're right.
And I think the other argument for her is probably the first Star Wars movie, because she is probably the best character in the first one. Maybe.
Yeah. I would say she's best in the first Star Wars movie. I think that she was better when she was younger, but Mark Hamill, I agree for sure, is the best performance he's ever given.
which is partly he is a better actor. He was not a good actor in the Star Wars movie. It's fine.
No, he was not.
Us. We're supposed to put ourselves into his shoes, so he doesn't need to be a good actor. He needs to be generic enough that I feel like I'm him.
He's gonna go get some power converters.
and he gets better, but like even him in Empire, the best one, he is whiny when he gets his hand cut off. No. But in this one,
I think you'd whine too.
very dramatic. Yeah, so I don't know. I think easily this is his best job. And then I love Rey. I know a lot of people from Force Awakens weren't on board, and I think she's great. I like Finn a lot. I think he was done a disservice in this movie. If I had to pick one character that probably had I liked significantly more in Force Awakens than I did it in this one, and I think that is partly the Canto Bright situation, and which is why it's the worst part of the movie. And then I think Poe did a great job. I love what they were doing there. I loved Holden. I loved what Leia was doing. I kind of liked everything. I don't know.
So if you were to, on the show, when we're doing reviews, we tend to rate things, 0 to 5, decimals matter. What would you kind of give Last Jedi?
I would probably give it a 4 point. Well, so is this compared to Star Wars or all movies of all time?
All movies, yeah, just a broad brushstroke of movie review.
Did I break up?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, a solid 4.
Oh, okay. And it obviously not your favorite Star Wars of all time.
No, I would say Empire is my favorite. Jedi is my second favorite, though it has the largest flaws of the ones that people consider good. And then Force Awakens and this kind of hovering together, or original Star Wars, I guess, above that, and then these kind of hovering in that same space.
Nice. All right. Well, Tony, I want to go to you because I know Ashley's chomping at the bit. I'm just going to let you simmer a little bit, Ash. But let's go to Tony.
Okay. I don't have a notes document prepared.
What is your?
I was going to type up a bunch of notes. I should have brought up my notes from my original Star Wars review just to be able to counter some things. But no, I agree full-heartedly here with Alex. I think I absolutely love this movie. I love the Battle of the Dreadnought right in the beginning. I love the way it opens, but I have issues with tone throughout the movie, and Canto Bite, definitely the worst thing of the movie. I think the stuff with Finn, I agree, he was so great in The Force Awakens and just kind of lost in this movie. But I love my favorite parts are definitely everything to do with Kylo and Rey and Luke. I love Leia flying back into the ship, even though everybody hates it. I think it's better in concept, but it was executed kind of poorly. I'll put it that way. The cinematography lacks on it, but the idea of it, I'm 100% agree with. But tonally, I have issues with the very first joke of the film is right in the very beginning with General Hux and calling General Hux, that whole thing. It goes on for too long, and for being the first lines of the film, it just sets the tone off immediately. It's just what is this? And so immediately it took me off right off the bat. But that aside, from then on out, it was fine. And watching it on a second viewing, that part didn't bother me at all. But on first viewing, I hated it so much. I
will say second viewing is significantly better than the first one.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah. I completely agree. The first viewing, I walked out thinking, I don't know if I like the decisions they made with these characters, but it's a gorgeous film. I think cinematography is amazing. I love the direction of it. I love Ryan Johnson's story. I love the projecting, Luke projecting himself onto the planet. But at the same time, as much as I love that idea with the Force and using that as a power, I think that's great and it's brilliant. I love they set it up early in the film when Rey first talks to Kylo, through the mind thing. He says, who's doing this? Are you doing this? You would die if you did this. Yeah. And then at the end, Luke does die doing it. So I love that they set it up there and I love that it works. But at the same time, how cool would it have been if Luke was actually on that damn planet and actually fought Kylo? Wouldn't that have been really cool though? And if you would have taken all that blast and just walked out of it, wouldn't that have been really cool? But
cool, but thematically, to fight people. Like what Yoda did in Clone Wars is not. It's, you know, the them having a weird lightsaber fight because he's a frog now and he can do it. It's like
he's a frog.
Perspective when it's supposed to be, I am smarter than you, I am better than you. And Luke winning that way is such a better payoff for what Jedi are supposed to be and what they've established them in the original movies, that it rings so much truer. Plus, from a logic sense, you know, how would he have gone there?
Right, and I agree with that. I completely, but there's just a small bit in the back of my brain that, as much as I love that, there's a small bit in the back of my brain that was like, would have been cool if he would have like taken that entire blast and just walked out of it. I hate this part though. I hate this part.
You finally get Luke back, you know, like you finally get him back, and I think it's understandable that you want to see him actually physically kick some ass, you know, like he hasn't been in the movies for a long time, you know what I mean, if we're talking like prequel and all that stuff. And I think it's understandable that you'd want to see him physically be there, but I understand your point too, Alex.
I think it from wanting him to physically be there, something that kind of Luke had a weird training schedule too. It's not like
he's not really a Jedi. If you like really look at his training, like he didn't like
a loosely trained assassin.
Yeah.
We really need you to just be able to lift rocks and like not die long enough that you could kill the Emperor, please, and hopefully Darth Vader won't kill you because you're his kid, and like that's like
There's a book that's part of the canon now that says that Yoda didn't even want to train Luke; he wanted to train Leia.
Oh, that's
right. Yeah, I heard that. Well, and Luke is like a self-appointed Jedi Master, right? Like who appointed him a Jedi Master?
Well, he did go back to Dagobah and train with Yoda in between.
He trained Yoga and Dagobah.
Yeah, in between Empire and Jedi. So.
Those are the deleted scenes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got downward facing dog Yoda when he's going through Luke's chicken, right? It's like, all right, Ash. You know, tortured enough. I want to hear your counterpoint because I know.
No, it's fine. Nobody agrees with me. It's okay.
No, go ahead.
I feel like the entire internet agrees with you. We're in the minority here.
All of my friends love the film, so I'm been very alone. In my thoughts. But
Rotten Tomatoes reviews is on your side,
right?
Yeah. I would say, you know, before I preface the way I feel about the film, I feel like it makes sense for people who are hardcore in love with the movie, I find, are people who know a lot about the extended universe. And so I think it makes sense that if you know a lot about the extended universe, just like the director did, that you would love this movie. Totally makes sense. But coming at it from the perspective of somebody who I don't know anything about the extended universe, to be perfectly honest, and I'm just coming at it as a filmmaker and a film goer, in my opinion, the film had a lot of writing and story problems and did a lot of stuff with the characters, you know, that I don't think really worked or made sense. Like I felt like a lot of the characters were saying exactly what they feel and being very on the nose, especially Luke. Luke would be incredibly on the nose with all of his dialogue, that it was hard for me to ever get into the film because I feel like Lucas's writing always left you room to figure out what the characters were feeling and experience that through figuring it out. I felt like nothing was left for me to figure out in this film. Everything was kind of spoon-fed to me and like told to me multiple times. Like, in case you missed this plot point 5 minutes ago, we're going to tell it to you again. And like, you know, just that's not that big of a deal to me, but the bigger deal is like characters telling you exactly how they feel or just being very blunt about it. But I'm glad that you brought up the tone thing, because that's a big issue that I have with the movie as well, which is weird coming from somebody who is like, I consider myself a comedian. I love doing comedy. I felt like this movie was too funny.
I agree.
Like
I agree 100%. Second time viewing, the jokes weren't funny because I'd already heard them. Right. So it worked better on a second viewing.
Oh, right. I could see that.
I mean, like, yes, some of it is not as fun. Like the jokes are classics now, so you're not laughing with them as much from the original Empire and A New Hope, and from the sensibilities of that time period, that it maybe doesn't feel as much of a comedy. But Han Solo quips his way through all three movies. Luke
absolutely,
Leia quips her way through all three movies.
those are a different style of comedy. So here's my argument is this movie was slapstick humor. Star Wars is situational comedy. So lines like "I love you, I know," or "Let the Wookiee win," or "Never tell me the odds." Like these moments are funny because it's the characters being true to themselves in that situation, and that's what makes it funny. But a little goblin creature putting like slot machine coins into BB-8 is slapstick humor, and like the last time we had slapstick humor in a Star Wars movie, we got Jar Jar Binks, and it did not work, you know. And like another moment that really ruined it for me. I totally agree with you on the intro with the call. Like it could have worked, but it went on a little too long.
It's very much in Poe's character to do something like that, but it just goes on for so long that it kind of it starts to ruin the tone. If it would have been just a quick little jab, because in the beginning of The Force Awakens, he does the same thing. He says, "Who talks first? Me, you." Like, but it worked really well in The Force Awakens because it was just a quick little jab.
But the other moment that I feel like was really ruined just to get like a gag was like JJ set up this amazing moment on the side of the cliff with Luke and Rey, and we've had 2 years of buildup to know what is Luke gonna say, and instead all we got was like a cheap laugh with a gag of him throwing it over his shoulder. Yeah, like that
I agree.
Doesn't feel like Star Wars.
If he would have just dropped it and walked away, would you have felt better?
Yes, totally. But
I agree.
It's totally, and you know, to be honest, like what I think is happening is the Lego movie guys wrote the first draft of the script. I don't know if you guys knew that.
The Lord and Miller guys?
Yeah.
Yes. So they wrote the first draft of the script. And in my opinion, you can still see their fingerprints all over it, where they said, "Oh, this gag gets a laugh every time we do a table read, so let's keep this gag in." And I think that's why the movie feels tonally uneven, is because you then had another, you know, the other director writer come in and write these serious moments that didn't really go well with this slapstick humor. But I totally agree that Star Wars has humor in it. And that's what makes it great, because it's a well-balanced movie that has humor and drama and all that stuff. But slapstick humor is not a form of comedy that we've ever seen, well, besides Jar Jar Binks, in a Star Wars movie before. And, you know, it just doesn't feel like it really
Have you only seen the movie the one time?
Yes, I haven't seen it the second time.
Okay.
When you watch it a second time, I'm very curious to how you feel about the humor side, because watching it a second time for me, I watched it twice within like the opening weekend, and on the second viewing, the humor worked infinitely more. Yeah, twice opening weekend. The second time was also in IMAX, and it was huge. It was gorgeous, and like it was actually on film, and you could see the film grain. It was beautiful. But the humor worked for me on the second viewing because it wasn't funny. Yeah, because it wasn't funny. It was just like I didn't, because the first time watching it, I did laugh at all of those things except for the shoulder thing. I didn't laugh at that.
They're funny.
No,
I'm not saying they aren't.
Right. I would highly recommend and ask you to watch it a second time, because even when you mentioned earlier that like they explained everything to you straight up, there's a significant amount of really well-built foreshadowing built in this movie of stuff, and that like you don't notice the first time. And like obvious examples are, you know, Yoda saying, "Oh, she has the whole library with her, everything she needs from that library she has with her," and then at the very end of the movie they cut to the books in the bookshelf. But there's like even stuff that like I didn't catch until the third time, like the fact that Kylo mentions that doing any type of force communication at that level would kill you, sets up Luke dying at the end. And these are just a few of the examples, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't notice the first time that makes it feel like stuff later in the movie comes out of nowhere. And so the first time you watch it, you're like, "Oh, where did that come from?" Or you know, these are not what I expected.
Yeah. There are a lot of payoff moments in the movie on your second viewing because you actually catch all those things.
Like
there's still some confounding moments though, like Waldo just, you know, Laura Dern's character just suddenly springing out of nowhere.
There's a really good book that if you read, it'll get you.
But like,
and that's why if you're,
she has no context of that. So for the you know, for movie goers and not someone that has to read books about it, you know, you don't have to
read the book.
Who was Mon Mothma? Who was Admiral Akbar? Who was
but Laura Dern's character had a lot bigger role.
Then I mean, Akbar was the leading.
Here's my My question though on Laura Dern's character is, did she have a huge role, or was it because of Carrie Fisher's passing that she had a huge role?
From what I heard, Carrie Fisher shot 100% of the movie that they wanted her to shoot.
Yeah.
Right, but I think he's saying in the context of knowing that Carrie Fisher died, like, does that put more weight on her? Right.
Well, they killed Waldo too.
Right, but how much better would it have been if it was Leia on that ship that did that?
It would have been fantastic.
My bigger problem with her character and the whole storyline with Poe is like, Poe is not, first off, Poe goes through this whole movie just like not listening to any of his female superiors because he thinks he's better and he thinks he understands, what to do better. And so he just disregards all of the orders given him by female superiors. And then at the end, instead of being punished, which he should have been because he basically just did mutiny, like he should be in jail basically because he just performed mutiny. He held his superior at gunpoint, like took over. He's not held accountable. And instead these two women are like, oh, he's cute though, isn't he? Like, I have a serious problem with that as a female. And there's a really great article. There's a Nerdist article called How the Last Jedi Failed to Hold Poe accountable by Donna Dixon that really breaks it down, where it's like, this is, I'm sorry to get on my like Me Too woman soapbox right now, but like this is a serious problem. Like that these women, we finally have these, badass women generals, and yet we, the director puts this character in there that just disregards everything that they want, and just like he gets no reprimanding for that.
Well, the only thing that I'll argue with that is, sorry, Tony. The only thing that I'll, and I'm not even arguing with that because I completely agree with that. But in the context of the story, when you have 25 people left of your resistance and he's the best you got, survive now and throw him in the brig later.
Yeah, I guess.
But don't have this line about like, oh, isn't he cute?
The isn't he cute line? The only reason that line works for me, and I 100% agree with like where you're coming from on that. But the only reason it works for me is because it's something that Carrie Fisher would say. Like Carrie Fisher as an actress, as a person, it feels like something she would say.
Isn't it Laura?
The line is, he's a good one, and then no,
I like him. Me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just the way that Carrie Fisher delivers it. She has like a little smirk when if she's the one that says "me too." I just remember she has like this little smirk that looks like Carrie Fisher, and what's the actor that played Poe? I can't think of his name. Oscar Isaac.
Yes.
There's a ton of really great set photos of those two, and they look like they bonded like so well that like when she says it, it's like heartbreaking for me because of her passing. That when she says me, like that's the reason it works for me. But from like a writing standpoint, I really agree with you, and it's something that I didn't look at it like that until you brought it up, but I agree with that.
The one thing I would say, and this kind of agree, is that this movie is a very short amount of time. And I don't disagree on he's definitely cute, but this literally it takes over maybe 24 hours. And let's see what the ramifications are going to be. The sad thing is that because of Carrie Fisher's passing, I think what we're going to get in the third movie is going to be different, or is obviously going to be different because she was supposed to have a much larger part in the third movie. Mm-hmm. And because of that, and I think we're going to talk a little bit later about what episode 9 could be, but my first point is I think there's going to be a time jump, and with that time jump, it's going to be weird to establish ramifications to Poe that we wouldn't expect his character to overcome in some way unless they totally cut him off, which would be an interesting choice. But it's because they're going to have to jump in front of time. If he gets any type of just regular reprimand, then they're not going to be able to show it, or they really lean into the fact that he is crushed by all the mistakes he made in this movie, which would be interesting, but I don't know if he's willing to do it.
they gave him that aha moment at the end when they're on that, you know, the base where he's just like, oh, you know, it was all those ahas like, oh no, I see what he's doing. You know, he's playing diversion, he's doing this. He showed a lot of growth to you know, nail it home where Carrie Fisher's like, what are you all looking at me for? Follow him. So I think that's the route they're gonna go. And just for time's sake, I just want to move it along a little, you know, a little quickly. You know, my initial thoughts, I had to watch it twice because I was completely on the side of Ash, where, you know, in the first viewing, I'm like, wow, that was a mess. It was a tonal mess. I thought the editing, it was a little choppy. Canto Bite, I can't say anything else about it that you guys haven't already stated. It was a complete intermission. It was stupid. It was very prequel. There was a lot of undertone messages there about like animal cruelty and stuff like that. It's like, okay, cool. I accept your message, but you know, not right now. It's not the time and place. Know your audience. Oh God, not Antonio Banderas. What the hell's his name?
Benicio del Toro.
Benicio del Toro, not Antonio Banderas. His character is completely throwaway, in my opinion. He might come back later, but he might be your new Captain Phasma. Who knows? You know, you might. Everyone's like, oh, Captain Phasma is gonna have a greater role, and she's this badass chick, and this, that, and the other thing. Oh, you like her? Well, she's gone. And yes, I agree with everything you guys said with the beginning of it. They stumbled out of the gate twice, and that's hard to recover from. When you do that, you know, when you're making, you know, The Last Jedi is some of the most somber moments of a Star Wars movie and some of the most slapstick weird moments. So that's why it was a little disjointed. The Luke throwing the thing, no one laughed. That joke fell flat. And the General Hux scene, the back and forth. One thing that I want to, you know, talk about and kind of bounce off you guys is, what did you guys think about Rey being essentially nobody and Snoke? You like him? Well, who cares? He's fucking dead.
Well, I have a question about the Rey thing, because I seem to be the only person who saw it this way. But, you know, I've seen lots of people under the banner of like, I love the fact that Rey's parents are nobody and she's really nobody. And when I saw that scene, I straight up thought Kylo was lying to her.
Thank you, Al. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm glad somebody else agreed.
She says it though.
Alex.
She says it in that line though.
But
she
nobody
says
says-
my parents are nobody.
Because she doesn't know that her parents are. You never know that she knows if her parents are anybody. She doesn't know. If she knew her parents were somebody, she would.
Right.
Say,
He's manipulating her into saying that.
The fact that
Yes,
she
and
plays
then
the image at the bottom, you know, in the kind of scene that we got from Dagobah, where, you know, Luke cuts off the Vader head and sees himself, her seeing herself in the cool, snappy little tunnel, I think reaffirms what she already knew, is she was looking for her parents, but she should be seeing herself the entire time. That's at least how I took it.
Yeah, I agree that I saw that she was being lied to. My theory walking into the movie was that Kylo Ren put her on Jakku and wiped her mind, which contributes a little bit of this. And the way, if you look at Force Awakens and watch how Kylo Ren reacts to Rey throughout the movie, and even in this movie to a certain extent, it doesn't make sense unless he knew who she was and put her there.
Sure, yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
The first scene that, you know, the best example is there's a scene where random First Order guy walks up and is like, we didn't get BB-8 or Finn, and Kylo Ren has his normal temper tantrum, cuts up a computer, whatever, and then they're like, oh, there's one more thing, and they're like, there was a girl, and then he freaks out and chokeholds the guy from across the room and physically attacks him, and is like, what girl? Which is like, why would you react?
Interesting, yeah.
He reacts
Good
that
point.
way. But later on in the film, Snoke says, you know, there's been an awakening of the Force. Have you felt it? So I think that he has felt her presence before that happens.
Sure, but why does it matter that it's this girl, or that there is someone helping Finn, or that couldn't that awakening have been Finn? Explain it. Like, I don't know if you haven't established. I think that he, like, in the film it's not established, but I think that he feels that it's this girl. Like, he knows it's this girl. So when BB-8 runs away with this girl, like, he feels it. And I think that he, I don't know. I feel like he just knows that she
because Snoke says in this film that I told you that your equal in the Force would rise as you grew more powerful. So in that moment in The Force Awakens,
and on the other end of that spectrum, after reading everyone's take that she is nobody and this is a good thing, I do agree that Star Wars has felt too small. Like the fact that Luke's dad was Darth Vader and and Leia was his sister made this whole thing a very, very, instead of anyone that can come up and be the guy who fights the Empire, it became very much you have to be born into a family that allows you to accomplish message that most people relate to, and is not the best message. So having more of a message of anyone can be a hero, go for it, is something that's a little bit of a stronger, and bringing it back to that is something that I do like. Though I
agree. I agree that that's a stronger message, but from a story standpoint, I love that this is like the Skywalker saga. Like it's a saga. It can go, it's 9 films of the Skywalkers, or whatever, 7 films of however many Skywalkers are left, but but in my mind it's 9 films of Skywalkers. And I think that in this movie, even if her parents are nobody, I don't believe that they're nobody. But if that changes and her parents aren't nobody, then it totally dismisses the entire message of this film. So I'm back and forth on whether or not they are nobody, because in episode 9, if it's like, oh, hey, guess what? They're actually somebody, then episode 8's entire message, the entire point of the whole film is mute. I just knocked my mind over.
But that's the exact problem that I have with this movie, is this movie just completely ruined the message of Force Awakens. Because in Force Awakens, Maz says that lightsaber was Luke's and his father's before him, and now it calls to you. And J.J. Abrams set up that, he made us feel like and set up that her parents were going to be someone important. And I totally agree that this idea that it doesn't have to be the Skywalker lineage is great. Like, I think that's a great idea, but I think it's a bad setup and payoff over the 2 movies, in my opinion. Is you can't set that up and then leave us hanging for 2 years to just be like, oh, never mind, because there was the lightsaber calling to her, like there's several things that kind of make us assume, like there's also the fact that she seems to have a connection with Carrie Fisher in Force Awakens, like
Chewbacca moment.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a lot of things that set that up, and it's like sort of the theory of Chekhov's gun. Like, you don't set something up in the first act that isn't paid off in the second. And to me, it feels like JJ set the stage, and then Rian Johnson was like, nah, I don't really want to play with that stage. I'm gonna make up my own stuff, which like I think would be totally acceptable. But the reason why I don't like this is because he's not paying off what was set up in the previous movie.
And he ham-fist the counterpoint at the end with the kid with the little mood ring, like the decoder ring. So he is completely taking that message that has been set up, like you said, from The Force Awakens to now it's completely anybody can be anything, which is fine if that's the message. But this isn't what the the Skywalker saga has been about. Like you guys said, it's like this has been about the family. This has been about this, everything's kind of connected for a reason. And this is why these people are so important. This is why we've spent, 30 plus years with this group of people. And now you're telling us, Rian Johnson or whatever, to just kind of ignore that. And now we're made to think a completely different story.
Well, which is why I do think it's possible, or not even it's possible. I agree that my read when I first watched it was she's still somebody, and this is Kylo manipulating her, and part of that process. I think
Snoke say, this is the thing I also was confused about. Didn't Snoke say to them that like I let you 2 see what I wanted you to see? So even
he set up Match.com.
Yeah.
But like if he convinced Kylo that her parents were nobody, and Kylo's trying to convince her that her parents are nobody, like they're all just puppets of Snoke who just planted these fake memories and whatnot into their mind. So like none of it is real, right?
It's all real, because Luke saw Kylo with her in the hut.
Well, they were communicating, but I think her.
No, I mean her parents, like the whole vision of her parents.
Right. Okay, yeah. From that, yes, I agree that Kylo was manipulating her, and from that standpoint, then yes, Snoke was manipulating him, and Snoke was manipulating the whole situation, like just to get her there. So I could totally buy into that. The Snoke is manipulating her to believe that her parents are nobody, because if her parents are somebody, that would only make her more
wanting to fight them.
Yeah.
And with JJ doing 9, the higher chance is that he's going to use, and maybe this is the plan all along, which would be great, is that, you know, JJ Abrams is known to set up these surprises. That's what he is. He is established, and so they bring Rian Johnson in and takes a film to throw in red herrings everywhere, and to make it so you don't expect the surprise twist that they're establishing, because they want you to be surprised. And if you walked into this movie and we found out that Rey was a Kenobi, Snoke is Darth Plagueis, and you know, all of these things, and we just find them out, and it's like, oh, I wasn't surprised. That was my theory. Great. Now, us walking into episode 9, we think Rey is nobody. Snoke's dead. You know, we have no expectations of what the future could be, which is kind of great. From the perspective,
I like that.
We're going to be surprised. And JJ is coming back. So if we're going to have one person to do those surprises to pay them off, hopefully he had them. You know, I don't believe the story that they didn't have all 9 movies planned out ahead. That didn't happen. They have exactly what's going to happen in all 3 already.
Oh, totally.
Well, actually, I just watched a really long interview with Rian Johnson earlier today, and he was saying that he was writing episode 8 while episode 7 was being filmed, and they were just sending him clips every day, just being like, hey, this is what we shot today. Hey, this is what we shot today. So he was like writing it. He was just writing it based off the script that JJ had written. He was just writing the sequel based off that script. And then,
right, like some of it's then not forcing him, but they're playing a game, because there's no way Kathleen Kennedy doesn't have on a wall.
Oh, no, for sure.
The bone.
Like,
Absolutely.
Luke dies here, Han dies here.
For sure. I
like a serial killer wall with like
red string.
Yeah.
I talked
looks like a game of Clue.
I talked to Claudia Gray, who's one of the canon writers.
Name dropper.
I talked to Claudia Gray last year at Indiana Comic-Con, and I asked her, how is it writing for Star Wars? Like, do they just tell you what to write, basically? And she said that they have an outline of like, these are the events that need to happen, but tell it in whatever, you know, tell it in the way that you want to tell it. But these are the events that we want to happen. So if that's what it's like for the films too, I kind of imagine that it probably is. Like, you know, Kathleen Kennedy probably has, here's the outline I want, but as a director, tell your story, but you have to hit these beats. So I imagine that that the Force or The Last Jedi is all just one big red herring. Like, all the things they set up in here are just to throw off our expectations. They didn't really leave any like major cliffhanger, so we're not dwelling on the next movie for 2 years like The Force Awakens did. So our expectations for the third one are going to be like, especially for the majority of people who didn't like this movie, are going to be like meh, and they're going to probably love it. But on the same hand, J.J. Abrams really sucks at finishing stuff.
Lost.
Lost, Fringe, Star Trek 2. Like, like he's just not.
He's doing good with Cloverfield, though. I will say.
I haven't seen Paradox yet. John and I are going to review it, I think, on Monday.
No, we're not.
Oh, no, we're not. Sorry. No, we're not.
JJ is also
tune in next Monday.
So, when you look at the things he started, he's never, like, Lost wasn't him. That was Carlton Cuse and David Lindelof, who has never made a good thing. You know, like, he left Fringe after season 2. Like, JJ is really good at creating these things that have all these boxes, and is never there to finish it, because he's been such a hot ticket since Alias, basically, that he just is on to the next bigger and better thing. And this is the first time, I think, that he's come back. And maybe Wrath of Khan could be another one, which I agree had problems, but I also blame David Lindelof for those. You have him coming back to finish the movie that is outlined, I hope, to kind of accomplish something. The interesting thing to me, and there's something like there's a lot of things that didn't get set up that people expected to get set up. There was a whole mystery on who Snoke was. And I do think we might, in the third movie, get into Kylo exploring who Snoke was as kind of his next step. But I think that mystery was never set up. There was no mystery in Star Wars 1, 2, and 3 who the Emperor was. We just
so we got a whole prequel about it.
Right. Yeah. But that was not something we expected to get necessarily. And when we first saw the Emperor, the world wasn't like, oh, who's the Emperor really? Is that Luke's uncle? Is that Darth Vader's brother? No, it was just like, oh, this is the Emperor of the world. He's the ultimate evil. Great. And with Snoke, the point there was, here's another ultimate evil, and we're going to subvert your expectations. He's not the final boss. He's the mid-tier boss. And really, Kylo's going to
Kylo's the final boss. Like, I wasn't surprised or disappointed by Snoke being killed, because to me, from the very beginning of Kylo, like, this is Kylo's story arc of just becoming the big bad. And then what I'm hoping is going to happen is that he's going to have a turn of heart, and his story arc will be evil, and then turn good again, which is very Vader as well. But I mean, it's a story arc that's really interesting and it's really good in my opinion. But that's what I always thought was gonna
happen. You guys familiar with the Avatar: The Last Airbender TV show?
Yeah,
I know of it, but I've never seen it.
So first off, it's the best. Go watch it. Don't watch the movie. It's wonderful. But beyond that, it lines up very weirdly, and part of it is because they built it to be Star Wars-y, like its beat points are Star Wars influenced, but the similarities between that story and this one are very weirdly specific. They both have a semi-whiny antagonist that slowly becomes related to the heroes, that eventually becomes a hero, spoilers, with a scar on his face that is kind of broody in the same way. They have a like the ending battle in the second one takes place in a crystal room that like everyone is in these cool big crystal, like there's a giant wall that they have to get through with a giant drill that looks exactly the same as the Death Star drill in this one. There's like these really weird things. And the ending is Zuko, who is our Kylo Ren analogy, becomes more of a hero character and is redeemed by the end of the third season. And this is accidental, and maybe it's just like Star Wars has always been the hero's journey. So here are the bricks. We're going to lay them in order. I can definitely see that being where we end up, where Kylo becomes more of a tragic figure and less of a mustache twirling villain on a train track.
Well, I love what they've done with Kylo. He's such he's like a fanboy. He's a angsty teenager. He breaks his toys. He destroys computers. He breaks his helmet. And I loved Snoke for that. Him calling him out and just being like, take that stupid Halloween mask off. What they a lot of people have complained about Kylo Ren. I think Kylo Ren is one of the most compelling story arcs of the franchise. I know we're about 4 minutes out. Did you have to drop, Alex?
I actually bought myself more time, so if you need me to keep talking, yeah,
cool. Yeah, just because we got one more little thing to go over and then we'll kind of wrap up. But just last thoughts on The Last Jedi. I kind of shit on it at first, but once I saw it again, and like Alex and Tony said, Ash, like go watch it again. You kind of get some more, and it's a little bit richer the second time, even though Canto Bite's still Canto Bite. But some of the best cinematography out of any Star Wars for sure. Waldo's sacrifice, all these. That's a breathtaking scene. It is an amazing scene. Everything. At the end with the desert planet, or the salt planet, even though Luke kind of looks like Billy Mays, the OxyClean guy with a fresh coat of paint, it kind of took me out of it a little bit. But that scene with him and Leia, I literally wept on both viewings. And I'm not a big movie crier, but context is everything. Of course, it's just like that was basically Mark Hamill saying goodbye to Carrie Fisher, and it's a beautiful scene. It's like the end of Toy Story 3. I can't watch it without getting a little glassy eyed. But it's an amazing, incredible thing. And I filmmakers, you three have made, in some form films before. I've made little videos. So it's a little bit different, but you have to respect the direction that a big studio and a big franchise like Star Wars kind of went with this. It's like we always clamor for the writer director, right? Rian Johnson is, for all intents and purposes, kind of a guy. He didn't really have a lot under his belt. And he took the material and he went somewhere different with it, and that has to be applauded. Whether you like it, whether we could pick it apart all we want, but there is so much in The Last Jedi that subverted expectations for sure, but was just kind of fresh and unexpected. And we're all I'd be remiss to not mention, all of us missed it, but Puppet freaking Yoda.
Oh yeah.
Best parts of the movie. Easy.
Yeah. So just moving along, just to kind of round this thing out, I just want to get some quick predictions for episode 9 and some upcoming Star Wars stories, which we already kind of touched on with the Obi-Wan movie. That we're all kind of in agreement that that's going to happen. But we've heard of a Yoda movie and all that. So what are your guys' thoughts? Just kind of early predictions on where they are going to take episode 9. We'll go Tony first.
All right. I think episode 9, like episode 8 was The Last Jedi. I think that's in a way a true statement leading forward. I know that at the end he says, "I will not be the last Jedi." But I think that in the grand scheme of the rules, I think the rules are thrown out. I think that Rey does build an entire. This movie's got to take place years later. We can't just jump off immediately where this one left off. This one's got to have some time to breathe between the two. So she's had some time to learn and grow and create her. Basically her new Jedi Order. She has an army of Jedi, and we have Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, which we did not see in this movie, and I want to see them so bad. We did not.
The Praetorian Guards aren't the Knights of Ren? That's a popular
definitely
theory.
Definitely no.
It's confirmed also.
Okay.
They're not.
No way. They're not the Knights of Ren?
Yeah, it's confirmed that they are not the Knights of Ren.
Okay.
Yeah. He's agreeing with you.
All
right.
He's like, what?
I think that they throw out the rule of 2. They throw out the rule of 2. There's no longer the Sith rule of 2. I think that this the episode 9 will kick off the modern day Knights of the Old Republic, reverting back to the medieval times when it was just leagues of Sith versus leagues of Jedi, which sets up the Game of Thrones guys to go ahead and do their trilogy of Knights of Old Republic films that take place in modern day.
By modern day, you mean a long time ago in a galaxy.
Yeah. But modern day in Star Wars present.
All right, Ash, why don't you pick up the mic?
Yeah, what he said. No, I'm just kidding. I one of the things I loved about Last Jedi was this relationship that they're building between Kylo and Rey. So I'm really excited to see that go even farther. I'm excited. It feels like they're trying to set up some sort of maybe potential romantic relationship. I really want to see that. Like,
you want to see them kiss their brother?
I'm shipping it.
I'm just kidding.
That's true.
Hey, Lannisters are hot, dude.
Right? Like
Kenobi, not a Skywalker.
But even if there isn't a romantic relationship, like I love this relationship that they're building with them is so interesting. Like it feels like the two of them, the only people that they can relate to is each other, even though they're on the opposite sides of the track. Like give me the West Side Story of Star Wars, I guess. That's what I'm saying. And yeah, I think the only other prediction I have is that I think that we're gonna see Kylo's inevitable story arc of turning to the good side, because we keep seeing him having these doubts. Like they're definitely setting up that he feels doubtful about his position. And I think what he did in Force Awakens was kind of like a point of no return, but I still think that, he will be able to return. I'm assuming that Carrie Fisher probably was going to be a big plot point for that unfortunately, I don't know what they're
I think that Luke's going to replace that. I think Luke's Force Ghost is going to replace that.
They said in the movie, he's gonna, if he cuts him down, he's gonna spend the rest of his life haunting him.
Yeah. You set that up pretty nicely.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
Go ahead, Alex.
All right. So I agree for sure that there's a time jump. I don't think all the other Star Wars movies had time jumps. This is the first Star Wars main trilogy movie that we've had an immediate sequel.
Yeah.
And
it was weird. Wasn't it weird? Didn't it feel weird though that it was immediately? And so, can I just ask you a question real quick on the timeline? You said earlier that it was like a 24-hour, little timeline. But all the stuff that happens with Rey and Luke is like over like gotta be like what, like a couple of weeks or a month or something. Like she's on there for a while, isn't she?
A couple of days.
I took it as a couple. Because it has to be days because they were running. The Rebel fleet was running out of fuel.
Well, yeah, I think.
But I'm just saying, like the stuff with her. I was just thinking. I think that the stuff with her takes place immediately after, like right after Force Awakens. But all the stuff with everybody else takes place like a week later or a month later.
A month later. Yeah, I think her stuff is literally obviously the moment she lands, and then it takes a while for the First Order to find out that. Can you hear me?
You broke up a little bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree. I think that the home base stuff happens a month after the end of Force Awakens, or a week or 2 weeks, and it had time for them to go find them, or to track them down versus Rey, which happened immediately afterwards.
Okay. All right. Sorry to cut you off, but continue on here.
So, prediction for the next movie. I agree that I think that we're gonna have a time jump. I think it's going to open on Leia's funeral. I think she's going to die or have just passed away, and it's going to open on the next generation. That kind of a reverse throne room maybe moment as kind of an opening. Otherwise, I don't know how you deal with that. And they've established that there's going to be no CGI version of her. I definitely agree.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah. No.
There will be zero. There might be. They might have things that they already filmed or things that may have existed or footage that they have, but there will be no CGI recreation in the new movie of Leia. I'm assuming other characters. I can't promise.
Ghost Tarkin.
He's back.
With even gaunter eyes. And I think that from that point, we also will going to have Kylo delving into the history of Snoke to a certain extent to kind of establish his lordship of the First Order and the government, because he kind of entirely established a coup during this movie of taking over the entire galactic military. So I think that's going to be some of what we're seeing on his end. And
that other guy, I don't know his name, but the other guy who was like second in command, Hux? I think is going to really like fight him for that position too.
I don't think Hux is going to fight for anything, because that was one of my complaints for the film that I didn't discuss, was that Hux was wasted in this movie. He was set up really great in The Force Awakens, and they made him a big joke in this movie, and it annoyed the shit out of me the whole time.
Yeah, so kind of it was.
I want to bring it up. We were talking about why people don't like Kylo that much. I think it's partly because they've established, having in our modern day society, Nazis are back. And
thank you for establishing that.
Yes,
just for clarity.
Empire was space Nazis, and the difference between the Empire space Nazis that were very World War II were very much a thing of we are a military. We're now where it's more whiny white dudes that are angry.
Neo-Nazis.
Yeah, neo-Nazis. Yeah, and there's like a kind of a different spin to it. But the First Order, almost like seeing the future to a certain extent, because Force Awakens came out, it was made 4 years before in the time we're in, kind of foresaw this. The First Order is a bunch of fanboys who want it to go back like the past, that are angry at something, and the things that white guys and everyone can be angry about. So
specifically white guys.
And there's a section of the Star Wars fan base and all nerddom that the Gamergate section that is those that are these people. Like, it's the people that this movie is establishing as the villain. Like, I don't think if Nazis existed at the level that they did in World War II when Star Wars came out, they would have liked Star Wars. So that's a little bit of that betrayal. But back to what I think is going to happen. I think Kylo or Rey dies. I don't know how this could be the end of this trilogy without one of them dying.
Well, Rey said Daisy Ridley confirmed that she's not part of anything past Episode 9.
Right. Yeah, but that's just contracts, though. They can re-up contracts.
I heard it was a little more story-wise, though. I heard it wasn't just contracts.
It's also like, I don't trust anything that, especially actors on the J.J. Abrams movie say, but anything from anyone on this side. Like, there's a reason that they had Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy come to the Infinity War set because they wanted to make sure you didn't know he was dying. Spoilers, dying at the end of that movie.
We're spoiling everything in this episode.
I know, sorry. Big alert on the front. Also, Rey and Kylo end up together. No, I read the script already. No, them ending up together makes a lot of sense. I agree with you that was the best part of this movie was this sexual tension between the two of them. And I'm really looking forward for that to be established. I hope they do more with Finn. I don't think Finn can die because I think the point of this movie was to establish his story is to move on and not be a martyr and to be something different than that. So it's going to be interesting to see who survives and who doesn't. I hope they do the Knights of Ren. I hope Captain Phasma didn't die. I know it pretty much did. And I don't agree with everyone that she was fully wasted. But I don't know who's
totally wasted.
Now. Who is Finn going to fight in the next movie? And so, establishing some kind of continuation. And I do think, Luke being a Force Ghost, is going to be the main thing messing with Kylo the whole movie. I love the idea of Kylo exploring Snoke's temple and looking for holocrons or other secret Jedi, Sith artifacts to help him become the uber powerful Sith Lord he wants to be, and just Luke being just trolling him the entire experience in a way that only Mark Hamill could, because Mark Hamill is a better annoying, buggy kind of jokery character at this point than he is the lead. So him being this annoying Yoda character on the back of Kylo as Kylo is trying to establish himself as a warlord sounds amazing.
That's a great example of Star Wars comedy.
It's like a reverse buddy cop movie, right? Old Man Luke was amazing, and that was one thing that people, besides the initial toss over the shoulder thing, that was the thing that was no one liked. But aside from that, grumpy curmudgeon-y Old Man Luke was pretty fantastic.
Can I ask a random Star Wars geeky question regarding the Knights of Ren? In the Force Awakens, there's the Force flashback sequence where Rey grabs the lightsaber. In that sequence, you see Kylo standing with what is possibly the Knights of Ren, which is assumed.
I think they're established. I think in this movie it mentions them. He says, "You and your alcohol, or the people that you spared from the temple."
Right.
They don't call them the Knights of Ren in this.
But in that sequence, you assume also that happened when he's standing in the rain. You assume that is when he burned down the temple and all that stuff.
Right.
So do you also assume that when Luke went to kill Kylo and all that stuff happened, that Kylo at that point as Ben Solo had his mask and outfit there ready to go?
Oh.
Or is that sequence a flash forward? Did Rey see Kylo staying with the Knights of Ren in the future? And if that's the case, he just smashed the shit out of his mask. So
or that Kylo kidnapping Rey and hiding her on Jakku.
Yeah, you think so?
I really like that theory.
I don't like that theory because I feel like he's too young to have done that. I feel like
he's 27 and she's 17 in Force Awakens.
Well, that makes so much more sense now that Luke tried to kill him because he found the Darth Vader looking helmet under his bed. Now we have context.
Kylo, what is this?
If I had to put
Did you get this at the hot topic?
Star Wars porn.
I think that Rey, if she's anybody's parents, I like the Kenobi thing, but I kind of tend to think that what if, but maybe not anymore. But what if she's just a Force birth? What if she was created within the Force, like Anakin was?
Midichlorians.
Anakin.
Anakin was created in the Force by Plagueis, is pretty presumed there.
They worked so hard to ditch everything from the prequels that it would be very surprising for them to latch their biggest reveal of the entire trilogy on a thing that is generally disliked from the prequels.
Hey, I think that the Force birth itself is totally fine. It's just the midichlorians thing that's stupid.
You guys have lost your shit though. If in Canto Bite, this would have made the scene is if they got thrown in the cell with not Antonio Banderas, Benicio del Toro. If freaking Jar Jar was in the next bed over, I would have loved it. That would have I would have lost my mind. I would have thrown up my arms and been like, this okay, Canto Bite makes sense.
Terrible.
Billy D. Williams
Yeah. If Billy
Okay,
D. Williams
fine.
just would have been the guy in there, and that's who it was, that'd have been cool.
I think the issue with Billy D. Williams is that he is actually in real life not the easiest for at least Disney and Lucasfilms to work with. I think they have a destroyed relationship. Otherwise,
I agree. I think he would have been in it had they had their relationship. Yeah.
yeah, I think it like when they're like, oh, I couldn't think of a moment. No, it's like, no, none of you at Disney want to work with Billy D. Williams, which is, I don't know what happened there. And I'm assuming it's the stuff that happened in the 80s and early 90s that made all of the original cast kind of hate Star Wars to some extent. And Billy D. Williams is just a part of that. And part of that is also just agents didn't know how to deal with franchise actors in the 80s and 70s and after Star Wars, because Star Wars was the first one. There was no movie like this. There was no child actors becoming so famous you couldn't handle it really at this point. And so, or like teenage actors, so agents didn't know how to deal with it. It's not like now where they're like, okay, so Katniss, you're going to need to do 6 different other Oscar-winning movies at the same time that your dies. Which they did. So I don't know. They all have,
or her and Mystique, right? It's just like she can't stop putting on that blue makeup.
yeah. You have to do 2
She
franchise
wants to.
movies and an Oscar-winning movie all at once so that your acting career survives.
Right. Yeah.
All
I mean, you
right.
don't want to end up like all the guys from, Harry Potter. They keep trying to do things, but they're just not quite making it.
Daniel Radcliffe went on to make Swiss Army Man, and that was one of the greatest films.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, but I mean,
Are you kidding me right now?
I
Hold
love
on.
that film.
Swiss Army.
You don't like Swiss
That
Army?
is the weirdest fucking movie I've ever seen. I couldn't even finish it. It's so fucking weird.
You don't
I'm
like
sorry.
farting corpses?
No,
Oh.
not a fan.
All right.
I haven't seen it
I,
yet.
don't-
I haven't seen
I
it yet.
saw the
Spoiler
trailer
alert,
for that
farting
movie.
corpses.
I will say though, I love weird. Like I'm totally into weird. And I saw the trailer for that movie, and I was like, this movie looks weird. I'm so down. And then when it got into like the weird boners and the farting, I was like, nope, not for me. Nope. Nope.
Well, with that said, that's our big Star Wars show.
Yeah.
We could go for hours, but we can't because I want you guys to come back and talk Star Wars again. So let's go around the table, tell everyone where people can find you. Miss Ash Blodgett from Ash-TV. Where can the good kids find you?
Yeah, you can find my work on Laugh-Stash TV. It's our YouTube channel, Laugh-Stash TV. You can also follow Laugh-Stash TV on Twitter. And then I also do a movie podcast where we talk about this. We actually watched all of the Star Wars movies before Force Awakens came out. And that was a really interesting episode. But yeah, you can check that out. We rewatch movies we liked in our past and see if they still hold up. And that's called Let's Rewatch. And you can get that podcast pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on Let's Rewatch. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Ash's Stash. Stash like a stash. I think it's like I have to look it up.
On train tracks.
Yeah, I think it might just be it's like a play on words. It's actually stash, like a stash of stuff, but I have a mustache. Anyway. You'll figure it out. Just Google me.
All right. Well, Mr. Alex Kessler, thank you for joining us. Glad that we could link up the schedules finally.
Yeah.
Love to have you back on to talk Star Wars and Ash, of course. Where can the good kids find you, Mr. Alex Kessler?
So if you like Magic, the card game, I have a podcast.
I do.
Masters of Modern, and we come out with weekly content on collected.company or on all of the podcast locations that Ash mentioned. Also, I'm on Twitter at Kess Wiley. But more importantly, if you like toys or you want to check stuff out, I have a toy company and game company, and so we release these toys. They're these cool balls called Drop Top balls. We also have hula hoops. They're called ice hoops. They're very pretty. I have a bunch of them.
Look at you all prepared.
You came.
Yeah.
I'm literally sitting in my office right now, so I'm just surrounded by toys. They're also mini ones. These are all at Target.
Ooh.
And then also there's a game that I made called Super Party Battle. Here's the box. You can buy it on .com.
I own a comic book store, and like we do games and stuff. I have to get that game.
I'll sell you a case. But it's like kind of King's Cup meets Magic meets other card battle games, so it's really fun. And you have to like do push-ups or be weird characters or sing a song. It's really fun. And yeah, follow me on Twitter at Kess Wiley. That's the best place if you want to specifically argue or discuss or talk about Star Wars things. Twitter is the easiest one.
Perfect. Mr. Tony Walters from Rad Entertainment, where can the good kids find you?
You can find me at youtube.com/radentertainment or at radentertain on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We have a movie festival coming up here in April, Midwest Action Fest. It's action,
fun.
adventure, and comedy movies. You can submit your film to filmfreeway.com. Just search Midwest Action Fest on there. You can find us. And we also have Midwest Horror Fest coming up in October, which you can submit your movies to that one too. That's live now too. Also, I have a comic book store, so come buy some comic books at Garage House Studios.
You want to buy Super Party Battle, boys.
Yeah.
Ash, are you selling anything?
No, I'm a dumb person who hasn't figured out how to make money.
I'll buy that lamp in the background. It's kind of cool.
I own a comic book store, but I'm still not making any money. If that makes you feel any better.
I'm glad you brought up the lamp. It's my beautiful hue lights. Wait, and be amazed.
It is a
Ooh. Oh.
Wait, everyone needs to stop talking. Just Ash so people can see it.
Ooh, they just change. They're hue lights. So I set them up to be all blue like Star Wars before, but I didn't save the setting. So now it's all like a savannah. Sorry. But yeah, they're fun. I want to submit to your film festival.
Excellent. Okay, and you can find me, John Dunning, on the YouTubes at They Said We Said, doing DGT live every Mondays and usually some other times during the week, usually with this guy and the other co-host, Mr. Dead Guy Tyler Pereza. You can find me on Twitter at Orzov Dunn, Alex, another Magic reference, and on Facebook and Instagram at John Dunning. So come say hello. Thank you to my special guests, Alex Kessler, Ash Blodgett. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the initial Our Big Star Wars show. And as always, Tony, thank you for joining me as well. So for everyone on the panel, we will see you next time in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. Ooh, nice.